Arise for a strong dose of love, joy, laughter, and information for healthy living.
Well, we're living in our purpose because God put us on this earth.
Today on the Arise Show, we have Derwin Davis here to share his juvenile journey of turbulence to triumph. Derwin led a life of defiance during adolescence, but he says, among many things, it was the juvenile judicial system that made a difference. Welcome to the show, Derwin. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Mr. Smiley, for the invite. It's a very truly endearing and unique honor to be here tonight to tell my story.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to take up a lot of the time, but I just want to share that when you shared your story at the DeKalb Justice Judicial Council fundraiser event, you could just hear people just gasp. You could just hear people gasp. I'm not taking away from anyone else's story, but it was amazing. And like in my intro, I know there were so many other interventions that helped you along the way, but you did refer to the juvenile judicial system as your safe haven. And now in the time that we're living now, where we're talking about the police brutality and so for you to refer to the system as it's so ironic, like for you to refer to the system as as something positive. That's a little ironic right now.
Very much so. One is because DeKalb County, in which I expressed on that night, has been an anomaly amongst many systems. For a person, and I must admit that this is a part of my life that I haven't shared much publicly. As you know, that was my first time sharing my story, and I felt liberated. And
wow.
I also felt now it's time.
Yes.
It was a validation for, when I heard about the DeKalb County Juvenile Justice Council and heard everything that they were doing, my heart went out because I'm realizing they were doing what the Juvenile Justice Council has been doing the last few years, of organizing with systems teams, fundraisers, strategic initiatives, and all of these different developmental programs, intervention programs that are based to turn kids around. They had a heart for that over 25 years ago. And had the DeKalb County Juvenile Justice not have a heart, I, who was in the system with charges multiple times, could have easily spent months, if not years, in Milledgeville and youth detention center, and not knowing how my life would have technically effectively turned out, having that type of experience where you're dealing with your defense, your reputation, disrespect,
Right.
repeat offender because of your pride, and you're trying to prove yourself after you get into that cycle. So I am beyond thankful. I'm honored that I received that type of grace. And so
there's a couple of things that you touched on. You said a cycle. We're gonna go back to that. Okay. But first, what I want you to do, just kind of like describe your childhood.
So my childhood was very, very, very diverse. And let me explain it this way. My parents were not together. My mom and my dad had me at a time that they were not together, and then they went their separate ways. Both of my parents were business owners. So they worked incredibly long hours. So I was a typical, what we would call a latchkey kid, right? So numerous hours at home with siblings, while my mother, who's a hair salon owner, back in that time in the 90s, everybody had roller wraps, finger
Right.
waves, French rolls, So they would be in the salon. You know, everybody had a perm back then. This natural wave that you had. I mean, women would be in there all night long. So mom was at work. So I spent a lot of time with my uncles. I wouldn't call them bad influences, but some of those were there. They were drug dealers. So I saw hustling. I saw entrepreneurship. My mom was very faithful to Jesus. So on the weekends, I was in church. During the weekend, Saturday, I'm with my uncles. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. They call me an old man. Like my favorite artist is Al Green, Johnny Taylor, Bobby Blue Bland, all of them jokers, because I spent a lot of time with older people because my parents worked. I didn't know much of my father's family. As a matter of fact, I met 97% of my father's family at his death.
Wow.
I never met my maternal grandmother. We were so close. That was like my best friend. But my paternal grandmother, I never saw her one day in my life. The first time she died, I think when I was either in my teen or early 20s. I can't remember the date. But the first time I saw a picture of her, what she looked like was 2019, summer 2019.
Wow.
So there's that. You throw a lot of those different dynamics with that.
Right.
Knew my father, but not a lot of relationship in that regard as among the other children. Our mom was at work all the time, so you got a lot of time. And I'm a
idle
son.
time.
Oh, tons of idle time. I mean, that was the thing. So you have some root voids, or what you would call it, with not knowing much of your family and that role and that kind of details in that you know, as a person, as a pastor now, currently a pastor, my master's degree is in biblical counseling, understand a lot of your psychological development, not having half of your family tree kind of split in half. There's a lot of things that you long for, search for, but seeing all of those worlds created a concoction of sneakery.
So at what point did you begin to get into
Teenage?
At what point did you begin to get into that different acts that led to was it criminal acts?
Well, yeah, two of them were. Well, yeah, it was some criminal stuff. So here's what happened. Around 11 years old, I started smelling myself, becoming into that teenage. I'm gonna be a man. My mom, you're the man of the house, but she's married. Problems with a stepdad. You know, I'm the man around here. You got that kind of beef. You know, smelling yourself. Also, I started playing in churches. So I was making a lot of money. Remember, I was around drug dealers.
Oh.
So I made money legally playing at church.
At a young age?
Oh, yeah. I was playing, and my first church was 10 years old.
Wow. Okay.
So I was making, by the time I was 13, I was doing anywhere from like $500 to $1,000 a week playing on Sunday morning. You know, 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, afternoon program, choir anniversaries, Pentecostal church at late at night. You know, you had revivals back then, which were 5 days a week. So
oh, yes.
Yeah, you remember the long revivals?
Oh, yes.
I played them. That might
Don't take me back.
Yeah, $40, $50 a night. So, and that was kind of one of the ages that kind of saved me, and we'll get into that. But so you got that world, but now when I get money, I'm flashing it. I'm coming to school, buying the whole table ice cream because I've witnessed life of drug dealers. So you're mixing this hybrid worlds together. So got robbed. That was terrible. Got jumped because I'm advertising one life that I'm really not about. That caused me to start carrying weapons. Got into an altercation at school while I was being managed, pulled out my weapon, made a threat, and I'm back in the system after I got into a smaller kind of slap in the hand kind of incident in a store. You know, person told me, you can call your mama or you can go to jail. I tried to run because my mama crazy. So,
like
that didn't make
jail.
Oh yeah. But Carolyn I love her. Oh God, I love her. But yeah. she was, okay, you get what I'm saying. So
Yes.
yeah, I brought you in this world. I'm gonna take you out, kind of, you know what I'm saying? Holy Ghost, Bishop Jake's videos, playing in the salon every day. She was that kind of mama. And so I'm not gonna call them, but again, so you got a lot of time, you got a lot of smelling yourself. Um, I'm witnessing multiple worlds at one time. And I grew up very, very fast. I grew up knowing street. I grew up knowing church. I grew up, spending money. I grew up doing too much too soon.
Okay, stop right there. And before I try to go back, some things I wanted to touch on. In listening to you, there were so many gaps. Yet you were around good, your mother was
Yeah.
working mother,
Yeah.
and there was a shelter over your head. Everything was provided for you.
Yeah.
But there was the gap there. And to see you were not neglected of anything. So you were not you were not the typical at risk child. And so many times that's what we overlook, that tip, we overlook. We have a certain look for the at-risk child,
Right.
a certain behavior for the at-risk child. Because I think about my childhood, and my mom had to work, but I wasn't the defiant child. But I look back at those days, but there were so many gaps there. And this is something that the Black community have to deal with on a daily basis. What do you have to say to that? Because mom has to work. We have the single household, and you hear it. I hear it all the time. What am I supposed to do? I have to work. I cannot be there. I cannot. So what is supposed to be instilled at that time for to help the child make that right decision? I'm just keep hold that thought, because here it is. Your mom thought she thought she was doing a good job, a good thing by leaving you with adults.
Well, see, and that was the thing. Sometimes I was with adults. Sometimes I had to be at home by myself. And when I was home by myself.
But like you said, your uncles, they were, doing things. Yeah.
So, but even that, and again, I can't put any blame on all of that. And even though in my childhood, I don't discuss, because I can say I did have a good childhood. Yes, I had some tremendous gaps. I had some tremendous gaps on the father development relational role. I had tremendous gaps because I was secretly defiant.
Right.
So I wasn't the child that's gonna talk back. I was the child that calculated. Mama salon got to open at 9, 10 a.m. The perm's gonna be on the head. So let me clean up while she's here. And as soon as she get to work, I'm gone. I'm gonna do what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna come back home and act like everything is okay. So I was that child. That Dr. James Dawson, Dr. James Dobson with Strong Will Child talks about that child who's secretly defiant. I was that child.
Yes.
Who's gonna go with the flow among adults, but I'm gonna look at it and lay out my game plan and do what I wanted to do. And so that really got me into a lot of trouble, where things spiraled out of control, where I found myself in front of Judge Pigler.
And what age was this?
This was right around like 13, 12, 13. So Towers High School went to 8th grade. So it was 8th grade to 12th. So this was in my 8th grade year. So you can zero in. Me and my stepdad started bumping heads, and we got into a physical altercation. That was like 7th grade, maybe 6th grade. Wow. So you're getting this vibrato of I'm gonna be the man, smart, that kind of thing. You're getting all of that in that time frame. So I got in trouble, and that was the first time, with the situation where I could have called my mom, but I decided to run with the Judge Pigler. you know, typical probation, they'll come back in my courtroom. I found myself back in, 4 months later, with a weapons charge, um, at school, and they presented 17 charges. From partly from me being managed because I got robbed, which me being flashy, you inviting that stuff. I got robbed. I started carrying a weapon in school. So you put all of these things together. Now I'm sitting in front of some serious components. Now I thank God that my mom, was a business owner, because when we came to face that, she was able to afford a retainer to hire an attorney. Um, so the attorney and the prosecutors was able to work out what I was reduced with. So instead of those 17 charges that they originally introduced, I pled guilty to 2 and was able to, work that out. That was another product of DeKalb County, because I was remembering what they first charged me with. And I just remember my mama crying every morning. I remember we walked in the courtroom and my attorney cussed. I heard him cuss on his breath, and I was like, man. What ended up happening is, we went to court to deal with that situation. Judge Piegler was very frank. She was like, listen, I told him not to come back in my courtroom. He's back in here, hadn't even been 4 months later. At that time, I was kicked out of the DeKalb County schools, not sent to an attorney.
Expelled.
They put me in at home. Like, I couldn't go to school. This was like January, February. They was like, well, come back and we'll see what options are available next school year. That's August. So Judge P was like, no, mama got to work. He's going to be at home. He can't be in school. Well, if he's been in here within 2 months, he's going to be in trouble again. I told him not to come back in here. He's going to Millersville to YDC. Mama crying, attorney like, oh crap, you know what I'm saying? Charges. So they do an extension. Of course, my mom's being a person of faith. My pastor and a guy who became my big brother, who's now currently a pastor, they came back to court. Attorney presenting the case, and Judge Piegler wasn't here. She's like, that's all good and well. We can work out the court cases, but Mr. Davis has to be under supervision. So she was like, he's going to Millersville. So my pastor at the time literally stood up in court and was like, I tell you what, Judge, how about I offer this? If his mom drops him off at my house at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I will drop him off at the salon at 8 p.m., we can certify that he's under adult supervision. He'll do his probation, he'll do all those things, and they went for it. And so what ended up happening is my pastor, I was with him Monday through Friday. My god brother, who was in the room, he booked every other Saturday. So now I was around male leaders who started showing me a total different way.
Right.
So the blessing of DeKalb County was they allowed my community to create a program to me, and my community was accountable to the courts. Mm-hmm. Like literally, I remember the clipboard where they had to sign the log. And I would take the log sheet and give that to the probation officer, mm-hmm, and do the drug test. And I remember when he came to the home, and when he was looking around the house like, okay, this is where you live. And I'm like, yeah. And so he's like shocked, but he's like, you're not a bad child, but why do you do this? Like, this is crazy. Like, these are these worlds. So I'm thankful that I did have a world of support that came in, and the court was allowed my world to put an intervention in place to be submissive back to them. Mm-hmm. This is why I love the DeKalb County Juvenile Council, because I realized in telling my story that many individuals don't have that support system like I was blessed to have at that time.
Right. And just listening to your story, there's so many other Derwin Davis out there.
Yeah.
Not that bad child, or not have so much potential, but need that intervention, need that extra direction, all of that entrepreneurship, all of those talent need to be redirected,
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My god brother, I love my pastor at the time, Pastor Ponder. I mean, we spent every day together. So I was a big guy, always been a big boy. So his two little pastor anniversary suits, he gave me all those. So I was suited and booted every day with my suits on with him. We doing funerals, doing church meetings and all that kind of stuff. But my god brother, he was young. He was in his 20s. And I never forget, he was the first guy that had a Mercedes Benz that wasn't a drug dealer.
Mm.
And spending the weekends with him, I saw that there was another way. Because I'm gonna make my money. I thought the only way a black man could make money was if he was hustling.
Yes.
I didn't see black bankers. I didn't see black entrepreneurs. I saw black preachers.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I didn't see numerous black businessmen.
Mm-hmm.
So once I saw something different, and I was mentored in that and held accountable in that. That plus music and me diving more into that, those were the avenues and the roads that pulled me out of that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And music was extremely it, because when I got back to school, once you've been in trouble, everybody be like, well, it's just a matter of time, you're gonna be back again.
Right.
That cycle.
Uh-huh.
That cycle can chase you and hunt you. So, when I got back
Just stop right there. When you talk about that, the cycle, how do you break that cycle? Because you're still young. You're like, how old are you then?
I was 13.
13. And did that follow you? At what point did you break the cycle?
Well, here's the thing. I knew very clearly that if I did anything else, I was going to Millersville. So I had that over the head. Like, you know what I'm saying? I know there's a lovely.
That was always in the back of your head.
There's a lovely young lady named Judge Pigler who has some wonderful glasses, who likes to look over, who says, if I come back in her courtroom, I'm going to Millersville. Outside of the anger management class that it was mandatory that I had to take, I remember I had to walk to that class from my home because my mom was working. I literally had to hold my little brother's hand. We lived on the other side of Kensington train station. So if my subdivision, you had to walk, because you can imagine that walk from Kensington train station on the other side all the way back behind to the court, and get out of there at night and walk back. The probation officer. So that cycle, I knew that anything else, I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing. Number two, the people speaking into me saying, that's not you.
Mm.
That's not you. That helped develop a lot. Three, I got very involved with music. I was in band, I was playing at churches. So me playing and working and making money and being involved in that front minimized a lot of my idle time. Four, when I came back to school, the negative perception I had when I walked in the first day. People saying this, the person that I was involved with, they felt threatened. So my mom was called. She was in the office crying. She's like, I can't send them to private school. I just spent over $15,000 with the attorney.
But you had not done anything when you came, did you?
No, I hadn't done anything when I came back. No.
When you came back.
This was all, this was just, I walked back into school.
Right.
And I've already got this reputation for that. Teachers told my mama I was a drug dealer and, all of this kind of stuff. So it was rough. Luckily, God gave me favor. I had a counselor that they put a plan together. They took me out of general ed class. They put me in honors classes, and I literally had to walk 5 minutes behind the bell.
Wow.
So I went to honors class to make sure I get out of the general population of everybody that normally get in trouble. They put me in honors classes, which, I've always been a sharp student, but gifted children who are not challenged and not structured, they get in trouble.
Yes.
Some of your brightest kids are kids who are going to do something when they're not focused.
It needs to be challenged and
Um,
channeled.
And that perception thing. Remember, I was wearing suits every day when I was with my pastor in the book. So I'm like, I had to change perception. So I went to high school, suits every day. I mean, a dress down day for me was slacks and a sweater. But literally, I got pictures where I can show you. If I didn't have on a suit jacket, there was a tie on every day.
Uh,
Um, and that helped change that. So it was so much of trying to overcome. And I knew that if I do anything else, my records wasn't going to be sealed. Um, I didn't know that how DeKalb County worked out the charges until I applied for a mortgage loan officer position at Regions Bank.
this is how many years later?
This was this year.
I know. I'm saying this like how many years
over
later?
25
Right.
years. I remember them saying, you don't get any more trouble, they're going to seal your records. So I didn't get any more trouble. I was like thinking they were sealed. I realized it's kind of temporary seal when I applied for a Gwinnett County dispatcher position, and they pulled up like, you got a record, and I was like, oh, but I was able to teach, and so I'm thinking I'm good until I applied for I was offered a mortgage loan position, and I applied, and they was like, all right, we want your criminal history, including juvenile, and I was like,
oh boy. Here we go.
And then they were like, we want your juvenile records, and we may ask for the court documents. I'm like, oh,
oh, this is over.
oh, like, so that's when it came fresh up on me, like, yo, your past can really, really hunt you and snatch you. So, I was nervous. The county office was shut down. I drove over in Tucker, it was the exchange place and all that, trying to get records. I had to call, somebody, and they sent them. When they sent them, I sighed of relief because it was what I did, but it wasn't the first charges, that book that they. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I did do that. Yeah, I did do that. It was a little cleaner, but I submitted it, and then when they, I wrote a statement and they approved it, I was like, wow, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we told the truth and we told it, but DeKalb is a county that will work with you. That you can turn it around.
Right.
So I felt really redeemed in the second chance on that component. But so many people get in that cycle and it's hard work.
Right. And then it was a great thing that yours stopped, during your teens, for the most part. However, you have some where it continues on. What do you have to say to that young man? It doesn't matter if he's Black, Latino, white, but to that young man who has that great potential to be anything he wants to be, but have fallen into that cycle.
Well, it's a couple of things. One, you got to be mentored out. Mm-hmm. You're in that cycle because that's all you know. Mm-hmm. The blessing of my life is my life is diverse. So I can go as hood and gangster with you as I need to be. But I say this statement, and I don't like to say it publicly, but I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. That didn't mean I didn't learn how to eat with one.
You made a good point. That's a very good point.
So that's one component. It's exposure, because everything is a world. So many people that that grow up in an adverse situation, they know how to overcome. The only problem is they just know one world. You got to learn different worlds. Music exposed me to different worlds. Church exposed me to different worlds. Drug dealer was a world. Church was a world. Music was a world. School was a world. Court was a world. So I made up my mind I'm going to learn different worlds. Okay. That was one component. Number two, I had to learn how to deal with anger and disrespect. So many people murder people because of disrespect.
And tell us, how did you deal with that?
Well, I didn't realize the fullness of my anger problems and issues until I became an adult. So, and when I look back at the situation, I responded that way because I felt disrespected. And so many people respond away because they feel disrespected.
They feel
Here's one thing out of that. Disrespect always grows in an area of insecurities, invalidation, or weaknesses. So
A loss of power, loss of power.
whenever there's a negative or limited self-image, or I gotta be something else, and people are disrespected, it wounds that. So all of those previous wounds, from those areas or those gaps, what
Right.
breeds out of that is anger. Anger at parents, anger at other people, anger of how, in that regard. So now when you have anger around you, it's like gasoline. It's just like cans of gasoline, it's tanks of gasoline. And all of a sudden, one situation lights it and all of that explodes.
Right.
So it's learning how to deal with that hurt, learning how to deal with those emotions, learning how to deal with that. Because there were times, even as an adult, that I still had to be like, hey, just because I'm the pastor now, like you don't know your boy.
Where do you think that anger derived from?
Anger is the icing on the cake of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Hurt. Anger is a response to hurt. Some people are sad, some people are depressed, others medicate, some run to drugs, other people get angry.
Right.
I was angry. I was angry about a lot.
And sometimes we're angry about events that have happened, but you're not aware that.
Oh, yeah.
You're not aware that the anger is really coming from that, or came from that whole era, that time.
Absolutely. As a 13-year-old, I couldn't necessarily put on what was in. Now, as an adult, I can understand it, but that's why it's important about a village.
Mm-hmm.
So that component of being loved. I'm a very, very unique person. So being around people who learn to pour in and dial into my language,
Right.
like my god brother. I mean, I can't even explain the moments that we spent together was so beyond. Now that I'm older,
Right.
like I remember us racing in Chattanooga. I tried my best to beat him, but that race meant everything.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when he bought my first cologne. He bought some Polo. I got some cool water. I remember.
Oh, not the cool
one. I remember we would go to Dave. I remember when we went to Dave and Buster's. I remember when he was saving money to buy his home, that we stopped going to events and we started having events nights at the house.
Wow.
I remember when he bought his home, and after he got settled, we had the first sleepover. We had a pizza competition where his sister came over and me and him battled off, and she was the judge of the best pizza.
Okay.
I had memories. What brought down a lot of my anger is I had a person that started making memories with me, quality time, that truly loved me.
Something you can reflect back to.
Something. Now, he would tell me about myself. Rules without relationship equals rebellion. If you don't have a relationship with a person and you give them rules, they're going to rebel.
Okay.
That's the part of the issue with the police right now. They don't have a relationship.
Yeah.
See, when there's anger, it's a person that can come and unlock that. Who got a relationship? You can have a guy right now that's about to go off with a gun, who's about to shoot everybody. Big Mama can walk on the scene with a cane and say, "Baby, come in." Right?
Right.
Because why? There's a relationship.
Yeah.
Rules without relationship equals rebellion. So that's what started to develop.
That
It's
is so
those
good.
relationships. My band.
I'm gonna have to use that.
Oh, absolutely.
That is so.
My band director, we started developing relationships. It's the relationships that made it personal. To this day, I don't like anything that's not mine. And I realized where that came from. I realized that came from not in the sense of not having, but when you look at those gaps of not having,
Right.
my mode was, if you don't want me to have it, if it's not mine, I don't want it.
I don't want it.
Because now I started valuing what was mine based off what I was supposed to have that wasn't mine. So to the point to this day, if it's clothes, I don't like wearing another brand clothes. I like my own name on my shirt. I like my own name on my cup. I like what's mine. I don't want what's yours.
Wow.
Because
What a concept. What a concept.
I can trace that back to those deficits that I faced that wasn't mine. So that was there. So when people spent time directly with me, I cherish that.
Yeah.
So that was my love language. And that's where it got down. And then as I get older, I had to realize and mature as a person, as a man, and get deal with those hurts and those wounds to relieve that pulse of anger. Because the reality is, anger is good. It's a gas. It's a fuel.
Yeah, you have to learn the appropriate anger. That's got the appropriate anger.
Absolutely.
Have the inappropriate anger.
Absolutely.
And you have to, we have to teach our young men the appropriate, and like you should not be shooting anyone down.
Let's go there though. Mm-hmm. Shooting is taking something that's powerful and it's exerting power. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you only know that that's the only way of power.
Yeah.
See, now as a professional, I know there's power in a pen. Now as a professional, I know there's power in a lawsuit.
Yes, exactly.
Now as a professional, I know there's
how to exert that power.
Watch this. I now know there's power in me not responding to your foolishness.
Exactly.
So the area is when you don't know how to use power. Mm-hmm. The problem is that's the only way that's been modeled that's powerful, that people got to respect. Mm-hmm. Everybody bow down when the gun come out.
Exactly.
All they want is the respect. Mm-hmm. But where are our systems, are our ways that show other ways to do that and to get that and to even be taught what's healthy respect. I don't want you to fear me and be afraid of me. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? If that's the only respect I got, that's the cheapest respect you can ever have.
Yes.
So these things are learned and developed through mentoring that really take a lifelong journey.
And that's a very good point. You're telling people, we're just gonna just anyone, you need a mentor. You need someone to take you through, to show you yourself and to be able to see beyond what you see. I feel like a good mentor is able to see beyond what you see about yourself. That is a good mentor. Whether it's good.
And so that's what happened. Mm-hmm. Is I started having people around that saw different things and they started bringing it out.
Yes.
And it's interesting because I've never told this. I felt ashamed about this.
Right.
I felt like if people knew that I've been involved with that, they would judge you.
It would change your image.
Yeah, I mean, but also the personal work that I've done on myself, now I'm at a place of wholeness that I can tell it from a place of victory. And if you choose to weaponize it against me, that shows the small and futility of your mind.
Yes.
Now, especially with the DeKalb County Juvenile Council, Now I even see a healthy avenue of even doing this to empower others, because there's so many who make a decision, who get into some trouble, who respond out of their hurt, who
Yes.
respond out of their pain. Um, so many of our youth are hurting. I mean, I
Yeah.
spent 12 years as a teacher before I went into mortgage banking, and I've been a
Yes.
pastor now, senior pastor now for 13 years. So many of our youth are hurting, and hurt people respond in a different way. The other thing is when you're in a mind.
You know what I've learned? My first year as a counselor. So I came in my first year. It was a challenging group,
Yeah.
and I felt like that group gave me dog years when it came to experience. My first year, they added 7 years to my 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned so much about when you say the hurt and building that relationship. I had to step back and say, okay, you know what? This is not working. This is not going to work. But once I just kind of like step back and start thinking, not what's not and not asking them what's wrong with you.
Right.
You know, don't ask
That's
what's
very
wrong
offensive.
with that child. It's more like, what happened?
Right.
Why are you acting like? What happened to make you act like this? What happened to make you causing you to do what you do? So I had to stop looking at what they're doing and try to find out, where is this coming from?
Hardly. I used to do this exercise when I was teaching. Anytime I felt like the kids' bodies was here with me, but their mind was on the other side of town, I used to do this exercise called the dump, and it would be on a sheet of paper. I would ask them to write the one thing down that no one knew, but that's sitting on you right now.
Oh, wow.
Or the one thing that you feel like you wish you could talk to somebody about, but you just can't get it out.
Mm.
And then they would dump it. I would just tell them, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm going to fold it up. I'm going to pray over it. I put it in my desk. And then because you trusted me with it, I'm acknowledging that it's there. Now we're going to move on in our lesson. And then some other days I'll come back in there. But that was the way that I got out.
Oh, you almost made me say hallelujah. I love it. I love it.
That was the way I got out the molestations. That was the way I got out there's trouble in Bankhead and Buckhead. That was the way I got out. There are pains of poverty and there's pains of influence. There's problems in every zip code.
Yes.
There's pain. There's pain in every zip code. There's some kids that go through the juvenile system who are not in poverty. They're experiencing a pain that others don't know how to respond to. And when you do have resources, you can cover it perception-wise better. You know, instead of Bobby getting expelled, you withdraw them and you put them in private school and that kind of thing. And you bounce them from a counselor, and if you got the funds, you can send them to boarding school. But, you know, Bobby can technically be an adult and get into some other areas. So that exercise allowed me to see perspectives and worlds. And most importantly, then build a relationship to drain out that area. You know, you can't drink boiling water. You got to let it cool off. And that's what anger is boiling water. That's what pain is. So that I can say having people that I could be vulnerable with transformed me. And I'm still like that to today. There, you know, the Bible, and I don't want to take it that way, but that's who I am.
It's okay. It's fine.
It was, to be naked and not ashamed. Until healing never comes until you have people that you can be vulnerable with and be naked and not ashamed. I feel like now with my juvenile story, I'm just doing this now publicly.
Right.
The shame is no longer there.
Mhm.
But that's when all of those things technically come out. And back to some of the areas, as an African American male, one of the painful things that which I'm so added about entrepreneurship now in our community is the only successful thing I saw. I'm not an athlete, was hustling.
Right.
If you see it, you can do it.
Mhm. Right.
So we have to change many of our legislation fundings, our initiatives, our mission work. Our kids are bright; they just can't see it.
They can't see it.
If you can show them,
You got
I
to
mean,
bring more to the communities. Like we have the now. It was something that Judge Crawford said, and he said his mission, Judge Crawford for DeKalb County.
yeah, I know. He's a
And
great guy. I
that was
love
for my listeners. My listeners.
I love Judge Crawford. I love his
Yeah,
heart. I love his passion. I love
yeah,
where he's going, and I'm
yeah. And
behind him
so he
1,000.
was, yeah. So he was saying that he saw where the court had to come to the community. You had to come in, not to arrest,
Right.
but to save our young people. Come in there to, like you said, to expose them, give them options, and
Right.
have to do more. Like you said, the police, we have to do more of coming into the community. Now we do, there are, I can't take away from all, because there are some, but we need more of that. We need
Trying to say in a non-threatening or non-intimidating way.
non-threatening way.
It's a thin line because I'm as an African American male in my 30s.
And you also are on both. You've been on both sides.
I'm still that way. I don't drive. I don't like to drive in my vehicles without a suit jacket behind me, just so that folks don't. There's certain things I don't wear. I'm just now getting to a point that I'm comfortable to wear jeans and tennis shoes because I didn't want to fit the description, because I've been there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a lot on that wave. So even as an African American professional, pastor and mortgage banker, there's certain certain elements they've still got to deal with. The biggest thing though is not so much law enforcement as what Judge said, it's community.
Yes.
I am a product of the community and the courts working together.
Yes. Yes.
I am a product, I don't know if this is a word, of community-based sentencing.
I understand it. Explain that.
No, so community-based sentencing where I received the sentence. I received the sentence, I received probation, but the sentencing involved community actions.
Yes.
That if the community actions was not followed through, then we would use the traditional sentencing to carry out those actions.
Yes.
So this was community involvement of a village. I mean, there was accountability factor to it.
Yes.
Like I can't think of the probation officer, but I remember them charts, them reports. I had to work a summer camp, didn't get the one dime because I had to be with the pastor. Everybody got a check on Friday. And I was in there just like, yeah, I got to be here. Can't tell them why I got to be here. They'd be like, let's go do this. And I'm like, I can't go. They'd be like, Derwin, you can't go with us. Or my middle name is Jermaine. Jermaine, you can't go with us. I'd be like, no, I'm going to hang with Pastor Thunder. You know what I'm saying? I'd just be like, yeah, I'm hanging with Pastor. Like, I couldn't because I had to be with him 8 to 8.
Yes.
But, and so then you deal with, because I thought about it, what would that be like with today's kids?
Yes.
With all of the scandals, the molestations, the child abuse, if the community is not right, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That could have created another level of abuse. I've heard about kids being in the foster system and then get in the foster system and get abused, and it creates that cycle again.
Yes.
So we have to be aware about, all of it, and I'll tell anybody, and then this is kind of crazy. DeKalb Alternative School was the best school I went to. I know it's crazy. I know it's crazy. I know
and
it's crazy.
and believe it or not, I think that's the purpose of it. It's the purpose of it is to have an effect and to prevent you from going down that road of destruction, to stop, to kind of place a bump right there, to place a pause on your action.
Yeah, and I haven't said this publicly. I think maybe the one or two people privately. If the DeKalb Alternative had a music program, I probably would have stayed.
Oh wow. But throw it out there.
But no, because it was two things. Teachers cared.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody was so bad, so they could put their hands on you and restrain you. You know, you jump out of line. And there was another thing. It was no tolerance. So everybody that was big and bad, you out of there. Everybody had a probation officer. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it was no tolerance. Like, you know, stupid stuff happened, but they were gone. It's not like that in a regular classroom.
Right.
The outdoor classroom, I remember when it was over in Scottsdale, I remember it was different initiatives and different programs and different things that was exposed to that it was fun at that moment. And it allowed me to escape the trouble that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because when you're in trouble, you got that feeling that you're in trouble. When I went to school at the DeKalb Alternative, I didn't feel like I was in trouble. It wasn't until like my sophomore year that I got that trouble off of me. But coming back to school, I can't do this because you know what I'm saying? They think I'm gonna get in trouble. You know, it's that kind of thing. And that's important.
So what would you change? Is there anything you would actually change about your past? What if there's anything you would change, what would that be?
I wish you wouldn't have asked me that question. Let me tell you why. Romans 8:28 says all things work together. I'm a pastor of a Baptist church, which I said I would never pastor a Baptist church. But I see a strong correlation between those years I spent, those months I spent with Pastor Punda. I would have never met. I get some of the changes. I get it. But I can't say that I would change anything because I've seen God work all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I would have loved to have a greater relationship with my father and even my mother, but I know scripture is true when he says he'll be a father to the fatherless.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I realized I got what I could get from my parents. You can't get what you can't get. Me and my mother, we have a great relationship now. So I realized the things that I needed for the places I was going, they didn't even have that capacity in themselves.
Exactly.
So God put other people around. And I do have a biological father. He's died in 2009, but I've had multiple fathers now.
Mm-hmm.
I've had multiple people. So I don't like everything I experienced.
Right.
But I don't know if I would change it because it's all led me to where I am now.
Wow.
And I know that's hard to say
Mm-hmm.
because I've experienced some painful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The most painful I could probably tell you was my grandmother piece. Because the day before my dad died, he told me I was the answer to a prayer. I was the minister. How am I answer to a person's prayer I never met?
You never met. You never know who's praying for you.
You get what I'm saying? But so that creates, but that hole created a longing for another identity. That had so you can't you know the old saints and old folks say I won't take nothing from my journey.
Yes.
You
don't understand those sayings until you actually lived and gotten older, and those things come back to you. Like, I know what they meant by that now.
If I didn't go through what I went through, we wouldn't be talking now.
Right.
So I can't say that I would change some things. If what I would tell myself at 13 And if you got some teenagers that listen to this, I would tell myself you're special. You don't have to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell myself,
That's hard telling a teen that
yeah,
when you're a
yeah,
teen.
you're special. You don't have to prove it. Your fingerprints are indicators that there's no one like you. Your
Mm-hmm.
DNA is proof. I don't care who don't acknowledge you, whether it's your peers, whether your parents. I don't, the fact that you're still alive says that you still got it. I would say that. Um, I would say let your friends shake themselves to prove who they are. We sometimes put so much value on people, and some people are temporary, some people are permanent. You don't know until years come into play.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would tell to some folks is I'm sorry, because you're carrying a hurt that many of you had the stomach and the silence to try to keep your family together. Many of you are carrying a hurt that other people don't acknowledge.
Right.
Many of you are carrying a hurt and a shame that you don't even like to think about it yourself. So everything is an escape. You get high to escape. You smoke to escape. You have sex to escape. I would tell you, I'm sorry. The last but most important thing I would tell you is that I love you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm by far perfect. But I'm learning now that if I don't tell my story, folk won't think they can get out.
Right. Right.
If I
Yeah.
don't tell my story, folk can just think this is what it is.
Yeah. And you made the perfect point when you said if you don't see it, and some of our young people, they need to see it. And if you don't see it, then all that only thing that's around you, that's the reality.
Yeah.
What you see in front of you, that is your reality. You don't see anything beyond that.
Like,
And,
no, do you remember the old juvenile justice building? Do you remember the old building, the little brown building you sit across from the recorder's court, them little tan walls? You just go downstairs in the little classroom in the basement. She had a little chalkboard up in there.
Yes.
I can't remember her name. Like, that stuff is stuck in my memory.
Yes.
I remember the little holding cell that they went over. You came in the back and they had a little wall so that people couldn't see you. But if there people were on the other parking lot by the little maintenance people, they could still look over and see you being pulled in. I remember all that.
Yes, yes.
But there is a way out.
Yes. That's what they need to know. There is a way out.
There's a way out. And I don't care what mistakes that you've made. And that's one thing that I wish I'd learned quicker. A mistake is really 2 words. It's called miss and take. It's miss and take. If you miss something, you get to take the lessons you learned from what you missed, and you're going somewhere. You take those lessons, you leave what you missed. So mistake should really be 2 words. Some people think it's 1, and they sit in it. No, you break that thing apart. I messed up. I missed it. What do I take from this? And I take that to the next place. I got to keep moving. Yes. You're gonna make mistakes, but
I remember when I subbed, and they used to at one point they used to allow you to bring the students to the jailhouse.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that was a field trip. That was a field trip. I don't know about them. I don't know what effect it had on them. I was good and grown, and it had an effect on me. And I'm like, I felt like, I was saying again, I would never come here again. I would never come here. That was an effect. And I just remember some of the students though. I do remember some of the students, and they were just so silent. Waiting in the waiting area. In the waiting area, they were they were just talking, carrying on, just talking and carrying on. But when we start to actually go in the areas, we got on the elevator, and we I think you call them the individual they're called trustees, the trustees. And I was actually on the elevator with the trustees, and we went into the laundromat area. And so but I do know when we came out, they had nothing to say. It was total silence. No one had we got back on the bus. No one had anything to say. And I no questions, and they were just silent.
While you were talking, it brought back a memory.
Mm-hmm.
Remember I told you my mom worked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She asked me what changed. When was the turn? I was assigned the anger management class I told you I had to walk to.
Mm-hmm.
I never forget the day I was keeping my little brother. And when you talked about coming into the room,
Mm-hmm.
I remember I started crying because it just touched me. I remember I had to walk one night and bring my little brother. And I was mad at myself because I had to bring him there.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want him to see that.
Wow.
And sometimes it hit me because that was a moment I would never forget. Oh, because we left class, it was in the wintertime, it was dark. And I had to hold his hand. I can't think of the name of the road, but we walked in the daytime, but we had to walk at night. And then, behind Kensington, it's very dark.
Yes, yes.
And I had to hold his hand. He was young. We had to walk because mom was at work, and it was mandatory. I had to be there. And that's when I was like, I'm bringing him to my mess.
Mm-hmm.
And that flipped it for me. Even to me thinking about it now, it changed a lot. Sometimes you don't do what you do for you, but I didn't want him to see that. And to this day, me and him are very, very close. I went to college. He went to college. I'm married. I got married young. He's married young. So sometimes it takes that. But when you were talking about bringing someone to it, and I thought about it, I brought my little brother, and that's when it shifted for me. That light bulb went bing.
That was a turning point, yes.
Because now I wasn't just sitting on it. Another turning point. My mama cried every morning. Every morning. From the time I had the second court case until I got into the DeKalb alternative school, and they filed a petition after we got the special thing, like 2 or 3 months of probation. They realized I was on a good track of behavior, so we took that record, and the attorneys applied for an appeal, and they let me into the DeKalb alternative school at the last week of April. I only had like 3 weeks of school left. But my mama cried from late January, February.
Wow.
To late April. When I say every morning, my sister used to complain about I used to get up in the morning and play the piano. When she came back from college, because at that time she had left and went away. When she came back, she like, he gets up at 6 o'clock and play the piano. She don't realize I used to play the piano because I used to lay I could hear her crying through the wall.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow. Hmm.
So that, like, this is taking me back.
Wow.
I used to get up to not hear her cry,
Mm.
and I would go play the pain away
Mm.
because black people, black mamas, you do something, they beat the hell out you. But this was something she didn't whoop me. There was no spanking. There was no you need to do this. She just cried every day. I would clean the whole house, cook dinner. It was just so those moments of seeing the pain of everybody around me did something to me. Bringing my little brother to it, seeing her cry like that, um, seeing my pastor sign away his life to babysit me.
Right. Yeah.
Um, those moments of seeing the sacrifice that everybody else had to go to for me because I'm not together, that was a major changing point.
Okay.
And sometimes you got to see that what you do is not just affecting you.
Right. But and just getting people to see that.
Oh yeah, it's not. It
Everybody
just
have their own breaking point.
no. It ain't. It just ain't affecting you. You pull that trigger, you're blowing over 50 to 100 people lives away. You shoot one person, you didn't just kill them. You kill the heart of his parents. You kill the heart of their siblings. If they had kids, you've now put a hole in a vacuum in their entire life. Their closest friends, they're now devastated. Their whole potential is wiped. Now your family is wiped because you're facing consequences.
Right.
So you pulled the trigger, you took someone else's life, not realizing you took half of your family's life.
Exactly.
It's when you start seeing how it affects not just you.
Mm-hmm.
When you're hurting, you become selfish. So that's one component about it that changed, and that's one thing I'm very aware now.
Okay.
I have a radar for hurting people
Mm-hmm.
because I felt pain. I know I can
You know
sense.
how it feel.
Yeah, God has given me a radar for it. I can, I can get in there but that's what happens. And so what anger does is respond. You don't know what all it connects. Fire always spreads. A
Mm-hmm.
fire will start in the kitchen and it'll burn the whole house down. All it takes is one match, and that's what we got to get into a point. And so I saw my life burning.
Oh
And
wow.
and it still touched. I didn't even think about that now, but when I thought about the tears I cried tonight were the tears I felt in front of my brother, that he had to see me like this.
Mm.
No.
Wow. Well, you are doing some great things now. So bring us up to this to the present.
Wow. So
Bring us.
a lot is going on. So I am the senior pastor of the Pleasant View Baptist Church of Covington. I've been there now over 5 years. I've been the senior pastor for over 13 years.
Where is that?
It's in Covington, Georgia, right off Flat Shoals Road, not too far from Washington Street in the square. So you can Google pvbcga.org. That's Pleasant View Baptist Church, pvbcga.org. All of that's there. I've served in numerous nonprofits. If you're familiar with Katie Bow and Praise 1025, you've heard of Man Up Community. I've served as the chairman of the board of directors for Man Up Community. I am now in a Regions Bank mortgage loan officer helping people. My personal mission, I am Derwin Davis. I help people win in life. That's what I was born to do. I help people win. And so now I'm in mortgages where I'm helping people either purchase a home or refinance or get areas of where they can do the best.
How important is credit?
Very.
Very.
Very. It determines your cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very much so. It's your reputation and it determines your cash flow. and you have so many options. I call it like this: credit is truly a key. It can unlock doors, and depends on what kind of score you have. You have a master key that can open multiple doors, and it can move certain things that you want to do. The biggest thing is it's going to give you opportunities. When you have it, when you don't, you're limited.
What is the ideal credit, right? I know we're digressing.
Yeah, yeah.
What is the ideal credit? Because it changes throughout.
Yeah. Anything over 7.
At one point, 600 was you were was 600.
That's you're kind of working on it. That's kind of low fare. But anything technically over 720, you get in the sweet spot. When you get over 740s, you're really at that point, But 720 is a great marker of where you want to be. 740 and above, you can go all the way up into your eights, but that's where you kind of want to be. Anytime you're in the 600s, that means you're fair to developing in some areas. 7s, you're technically good. And 8s, you're beyond excellent. But 740 above, you're doing pretty good. That's like a A plus, that kind of in that area. Any 5s is some problems, but there's some literacy components in that. But I help people with that in mortgages. I just came out of 12 years of being a public school educator in choral music. So I'm still a teacher at heart. My wife, I've been married now for 16 years. July 16th, we'll celebrate 16 years of being married, Raquel Dell. Absolutely. So I got married at 21 years old.
Wow.
I got married young. After, I've been kind of a progressive guy. So after I got myself together, I started hitting and got busy, moving through things, went to Tennessee State, and moved to the area. So I've been doing that. I provide counseling for couples, and sometimes on a limited basis, I do some life coaching. But that's pretty where I am now. The main thing is I help people win, whether that's pastoring, whether that's now in mortgages. I did that for 12 years as a teacher. Whether that's mentoring men through Man Up and developing initiatives there, or whether that's life coaching or counseling. My main goal is to help you be the best you.
Great. What is the last, we talked about so much stuff.
Yeah.
What is the last thing you would like to say to parents who are facing some of the challenges that your mom faced? What are the last things you would like to say?
I say this statement to parents. I'm gonna say one statement, and I'm gonna say another. I tell parents, it's a scripture that says, train up a child in the way that they should go. But that scripture says, and when they get old. So the problem is parents want their child to develop quickly. Scripture doesn't say don't train up a child in the way they should go. And when they turn 13, they're going to be all right. It says, and when they get old, they won't depart. So one thing about parenting is you got to deposit it in the child and have to trust that your payday is when they get old.
Right.
You got to ride through all of those changes.
Oh, God, that's a whole different, that's a whole nother hour.
Yeah. And that's one component is the scripture says, train up a child in the way they should go. And when they get old. Also, scripture says, fathers, don't provoke your children to wrath. The second thing I would commission parents is that parents have to heal because unhealed parents create wounded children. So be aware and ask God to show you, are your actions causing a wound or a pain?
Wow.
Because some of your actions or your past actions, because scripture says the sins of the father visit a third and fourth generation. So that means granddaddy stuff, it visits the third and fourth generation. So some of the stuff that our kids are facing is doors we opened years ago, and the sins of the father visits the third and fourth generation. That means granddaddy stuff is going to knock on your child's door. Now the key is training, and that's why I admonish parents to be honest with their kids, because their stuff is going to knock on that child's door. See, if you're honest about it, when it knocks on the child's door, you've already told them. So the child.
I see. You just don't want to end this interview. You do
When you ask me a question.
You do not want to end this interview.
We need to end it. Yeah, we do. But I'm just just be aware that you need to be transparent in a way so that when your stuff or your grandparents' stuff knocks on the door, the child is prepared to answer the door and say, that's my granddaddy's stuff. And guess what? It's not going to live here because it's knocking. That's it. That's all. I'm leaving it at that.
Okay. So I'm going to say this, that's you hit it right there on the head. You hit it right there on the head. We families need to start having these table discussions. Families need to start, first of all, having dinner, sitting down and having dinner together. And we need it. Yes.
And I'll say one
Yes.
last thing, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Stop saying what goes on in my house stays in my house. No, it's not. It's gonna show up in the courtroom if you don't deal with it.
It never stays in your house.
Yeah, what happens in your house stays in your house. It's gonna show up in the courthouse.
Show up.
So you might want to get you some help and take a village. You know, and I'm not saying no more because you told we got to end this.
That's you know what, I was going to say something, but I'm just going to end it right there. Thank you, because that was powerful. That was powerful.
I'm honored that you even gave this invite, and to everybody that's watching, I pray that you was blessed. I shared a lot transparent from my heart. So, you know, those want to hold a record over my head. Unless you got FBI status, you can't see it no way. So but
we gotta have you to come back and talk about the mortgage and how to build your credit. You got to come back and talk about that, because we need to get more people into homes and like you said, empowering people.
Absolutely.
Giving them the power to get what they want, get what's for them, so they can have their own name brand. Their name. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
Pastor Derwin Davis. Thank you so much.